Welcome to the CDRB Show, the podcast where you get to know some of the coolest people around. I'm your host, Christian Rodriguez, and each week I sit down with a special guest to chat about their life, career, and all the things that make them awesome. We cover some serious topics that matter, but don't worry, we keep it real and laid back. You never know what kind of insights and surprises you'll get, but one thing's for sure, we're always having a good time. So kick back, relax, and join us for another episode of the CDRB Show. Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the CDRB Show. I'm Christian Rodriguez, and as every week we have a special guest to talk about their life and career. This week's guest is Larry Isch, journalist and director of public and media relations at the University of the Ozarks. How are you?
Doing well, Christian. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed listening to the show and learning a little bit more about my colleagues and the people I work with at the university. So it's been enjoyable to get to learn a little bit more about them, and I'm honored to be a guest now.
Yeah, of course, and I appreciate you being here because when we talked the first time, it was like, Then I was thinking about the guest that I will bring to the show, and I was thinking Mr. Isch will be a very good guest for this show. So thank you for being here again. And
well, it's a little bit unusual because I'm usually the one asking the questions, so I'm on the other side of the.
Yeah, you're on the other side now.
So yeah, this will be interesting.
yeah. I'm a bit worried, concerned because I feel in the spot right now because I'm doing your job now.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the first thing that we want to know about our guests every week is about like a little bit about your background. So the first question is, where were you born?
So I was born in a little town called Warner Robins, Georgia. So my dad was in the Air Force, and they have an Air Force base there.
Okay.
And he was stationed there at Warner Robins Air Force Base in Georgia, and that's where I was born. And we kind of moved around a lot, as Air Force brats usually do. And so we've lived in short times in Texas and Oklahoma and Alaska.
Oh, wow.
So several places when I was growing up younger.
How was it for you to deal with those things of having to move a lot of times?
You get used to it. You know, I come from a large family, so I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers, and so we had a large family, so we always had each other to kind of hang out with. But it was an adjustment to move around schools a lot.
Mm-hmm. So you have how many brothers and sisters?
So I have 2 older brothers and 4 younger sisters, and the younger sisters are 2 sets of twins.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of unusual. So we come from a large family.
Yeah. So you had the chance to get together with them, or were you like very part away in terms of ages?
My brothers were a little bit older, so I mainly grew up with 4 sisters. So my brothers were 7 and 8 years older.
Yeah.
And then my family had me, and then they wanted to try to have a girl, and they ended up with 4 girls. So I grew up with basically 4 sisters, and we're still close to this day. They all still live in Arkansas. So
that's great.
It's good that we live close by.
Yeah. So you were moving a lot when you were a child. How was your life when you were a child? Do you remember your childhood, or did you have any struggles, or how was the way you were raised by your parents too?
I think my father was an attorney. So after he got out of the Air Force, he went to law school and became an attorney. And he was from Arkansas, so in junior high, we had moved back to Arkansas, and he began practicing law. So basically from junior high through high school, I grew up in Arkansas. And, education was emphasized, so we all, focused on education. I played a lot of sports in high school. And so to me, it was a pretty typical middle-class childhood growing up in a small town. We grew up lived in Mountain View, Arkansas for a little while, and then Newport, Arkansas was where I graduated from high school.
How was that dealing with friendship? Because you were moving a lot, and Did you have the chance to make like strong connections with friends?
Right. I think when you're younger, you're more resilient to those type of things. But by the time we had got to junior high, when you really start making lifelong friends, we were basically in one or two places. So I made a lot of friends and people that I still call friends today, and that we still get together. But we were fortunate that by the time we were all in junior high, we had pretty much settled back in Arkansas.
What did you study in college?
So, I was one of those that pretty much knew what I wanted to do when I was in the eighth and ninth grade. Junior high, I had grown up reading newspapers, just loving newspapers. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to be able to wake up in the morning and know what was going on in the world by reading the morning newspapers. And my dad got 2 or 3 different newspapers every day. So by junior high, I knew I wanted to be a writer. Then I wanted to be a sports writer. I loved to read about the sports going on. And so, high school, I kind of geared myself toward that. And then I went to college at University of Central Arkansas, majored in journalism. Worked at the school newspaper, was the editor of the college newspaper, and so knew then that journalism was basically my career, communications and journalism.
Were you a good student when you were in college?
I was an average student. I got some scholarships, but I also worked my way through college. I was a head cook at Shoney's restaurant there in Conway, and then also worked at some factories to put my way through school, and that certainly affected my grades to some degree. But I always made good grades in the classes that I was really interested in, like a lot of students. English, history. I really enjoyed those subjects. Science and math, not so much. So I was a pretty good student.
I think we're on the same page in that sense, because I like more the reading-oriented classes. I think the class I loved the most from the communications area was media writing, because I learned a lot about how to make a lot of things there. But the science or math, I don't like them so much.
Yeah, that side of my brain just doesn't function as well as the other side. But I often wonder how I would have done at a place like Ozarks, where I would have been forced to take more of the science and math courses through the Lens curriculum, and I'm sure it would have helped. But I tried to stay away from those courses as much as possible at UCA. Yeah. And then I went on after that and got a master's degree at Arkansas State University, a master's in communications. And, actually in a lot of ways, the graduate degree was easier than the undergraduate degree, because you were taking all classes in your discipline. So I really enjoyed those classes.
You also have a life out of your job, so I want to ask you this: what do you do in your spare time? Like, do you have any like side projects, activities, or things that you enjoy doing?
I still enjoy sports a lot. So I play a lot of golf, play a lot of tennis. I played tennis in college, and still play in tournaments around the state and play in several leagues. I drive to Fort Smith once a week during the spring and play in a league there. So tennis, my wife and I, we love to go hiking and kayaking. We have kayaks and biking. So anything outdoors. We live in a wonderful part of the country here in the Ozark Mountains, and we try to take advantage of it every chance we can.
Yeah, I mean, here the best thing that you can do is around nature,
Absolutely. It seems like every time we go hiking, an hour from our house up in the Ozark Mountains, we run into people. We meet people from Illinois and Iowa, and they're all coming here. And, it makes you think a little bit more about appreciating what we have here as far as nature.
Do you imagine yourself living in New York? What are you?
What
activities?
Right, we enjoy visiting. Of course, we enjoy visiting large cities. Chicago, San Francisco are a couple of our favorite large cities, and we enjoy the food and the shows and that sort of thing. But we're always ready to get back to Arkansas.
How is a normal weekend in your life? Like tomorrow you get out of job at what 5 p.m. and then on Saturday, what it looks like for you?
Usually, this time of year, a lot of yard work, so mowing and working in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
My wife always has projects for me to do, and then but I tried. We try to go travel a little bit. Sometimes, like I said, go hiking or go up
Yeah.
into the mountains, or like to go up to Northwest Arkansas. We did that last weekend,
Okay.
and went out to eat and visited different areas around Northwest Arkansas. So we like to travel a little bit.
All right. You mentioned before that you studied journalism. So I want to know more about your experience as a journalist. How has it been for you to be a journalist?
It's 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 been an interesting career, journalism. I got into journalism, as I mentioned. Went to college in the late 80s, early 90s. I got on, actually, my last year of undergraduate school, I got on full time at the Arkansas Democrat newspaper, which was a statewide newspaper. And it was in the middle of a big newspaper war with the Arkansas Gazette. And it was an exciting time to be in journalism. A lot of things to cover. The papers were large and had a lot of space. A lot of advertisers, and it was just thriving at the time. I was there at the Democrat Gazette as a sports writer and got to cover a lot of, big events, Super Bowls, World Series. Got to cover Davis Cup tennis, which I loved. I covered the Dallas Cowboys when a Arkansan by the name of Jerry Jones bought the team. We began covering the Dallas Cowboys, and I had the opportunity to cover them. So being young and being a sports writer covering sports, that was a great time. About 1994, I decided I wanted to go back to college, and went to ASU, as I mentioned, got my master's degree, worked at the newspaper there in Jonesboro. But I could tell around that time that the internet was really starting to blossom. Newspapers, at least the traditional way of newspapers, was kind of coming to an end. I wanted to kind of get into something at a college or university, because I had always enjoyed, when I was my undergraduate, I worked in the sports information office and the communications office at that college, and then at ASU I did the same thing. So I started thinking maybe I would like to get in a career of college public relations or media relations, and so I graduated with my master's degree in 1997 and began looking for colleges and university jobs, and found this one, and I got here in 1997. At the time, I was basically a one-person shop. I did photography, I did graphic design, I did marketing, I did sports information.
Wow.
I did public relations, I did media relations. We did all the brochures, and it was just me.
Wow. How was that?
And that was a little bit overwhelming. I think there were several days I was ready to, call it quits, but I stuck with it, and we were fortunate enough during the late 90s and early 2000s to have some really successful capital campaigns where we raised a lot of money. We're able to enhance the college in a lot of ways, and we were able to start adding staff, like a photographer. We hired Vinnie Tran, who's still our photographer to this day, and we hired some graphic artists, and we hired people who could just handle marketing. And Josh Pepis was hired during that time for sports information. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think we were really able to step up our resources, and I think that really helped improve the college overall.
So you had the whole responsibility for all the areas, basically, of the university.
Right. Like I said, obviously you can't do every area justice like you should be able to, recruiting students or helping with fundraising. That was a lot, and we were really fortunate to be able to have a campaign that helped shore up a lot of areas. And it wasn't just in communications and marketing. It was areas we were able to add professors and staff people in a lot of areas. IT, I know, was one area. And that was really a big step up for the university during that time.
Yeah. Regarding the journalism profession, I wanted to ask you this because in several countries, being a journalist is a risky profession, and not very far from here, my own country, Honduras, is really risky for journalists to deliver the information to the public sometimes, because what the journalists deliver sometimes is not of the interests of the governments or private companies or any other specific group. So I wanted to ask you, how is it like here in the US for you personally, or if you have had any like weird experience with that, or a friend, maybe a colleague?
I think we're fortunate in the US. Up until a few years ago, I think journalism was considered a very noble position, a noble job, and a big part of democracy here in the United States. We're fortunate that there's not a lot of violence like there are in other countries, and I have the utmost respect for journalists who do their job in countries where there's a lot of risk. I can't pretend to even understand what that's been like in my career, because I've covered a lot of contentious meetings and meetings with or situations where they may seem stressful, but I've never felt in harm's way. Where I know journalists in many countries, they're always having to look over their shoulder, because, as you said, when you report something, it's not always popular. And with some very powerful entities out there. So, I think in this country, and it's sad, but in this country in the last few years, I think reporting and journalism has gotten a bad rap. And sometimes it's the internet and all social media and all these has made it a little more difficult to discern what is actual reporting and what's just opinion. And I still think there's a place, maybe more important than ever, there's a place that for trained, educated journalists who want to get to the truth, whether it's good or bad. And I think we're starting to see that, and I think at the end, people can discern good journalism, and what's sloppy journalism or what's opinion pieces, and at the end of the day, that wins out.
Do you think the internet has challenged the way that journalism is made? Because when the internet was not a thing, only people with a microphone or in a radio station or in a newspaper or in a TV station could give their opinion. But nowadays, anyone can speak.
Right. I think there's good and bad. Obviously, it's obviously given people more people voices, to be heard. That can be dangerous. That can be a good thing. I think we're still in a period where we have to, as a country and as a society and even as a world, we have to start figuring these things out, because, you give everybody a microphone or everybody access to large masses. There's potential for danger, but there's also potential for good. And, I think we have to still kind of figure out what that looks like in the future. But certainly there's been some good, to hear different voices and different opinions. That's good. But when you start knowingly send out false information,
that becomes a problem. And I think we're seeing that, and it's we're still trying to, I think, like I said, as a world, trying to figure this all out. Do you have like anything you think it could help make news more like true and less fake?
Well, I think, unfortunately, during this whole time, we've seen the demise of journalism programs around the country and around the world. Good journalism programs where students can go and learn to be as objective as possible and learn to get rid of the biases and to really report the truth. So I think what we're going to have to do is just get back to having strong journalism programs, and I think when you have that, I think the cream rises to the top. I think people who are good and people that others know that they can trust for telling the truth will rise to the top.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's, and so I think it comes back to good training, good background education.
I have heard many times that we right now are living in the era of clickbait. You know what clickbait is, right?
Right.
So a lot of people and journalism nowadays just try to catch the attention of the user so that they can have the visits on their website or whatever and keep making money. What do you think about those type of...
Well, I think colleges need to do a good job of helping students, get through all the muddle and all the gray area to get to the truth.
Yeah.
And so it comes down to an individual, has to be able to do the research on their own and be able to know what's legit and what isn't. And that all comes down to education. I think the more educated you are, hopefully the more open-minded you are, and the more you're able to kind of discern what's real and what's not. And that's to me what it comes down to. The more people we can get educated with high school and in college degrees, or at least that kind of training and background, the more that they're going to be able to tell
if something is accurate or the information is worth it. I think the same, because in countries like mine, in Honduras, I think that's one of the biggest issues, the lack of education resources for the population. And that's in part because I can't believe that the government in Honduras, for example, spends a lot of money in military and police enforcement and all that. If we're not in war, we're not in war with any other country, and I don't think we will be ever. And the government has the resources to spend more money in education, in healthcare, but they don't do it. And part of that, in my opinion, is that they want to keep the people without education, because that way is easier to maybe influence them and have them in the thoughts that the government wants them to be. So
yeah, that's a good point. And a lot of it comes down to access to the internet. What do your rural people, do they have access to internet to be able to go and find information and to look at different opinions and kind of work on figuring out what they believe based on what they can find out. So access to internet is a huge deal in being able to maybe solve some of these issues.
Yeah, and it's weird because I have seen that same behavior here in the U.S. of people that just reads a title in the news on a website or whatever, and they know what happened just because they read that. And education here in the U.S. is more widespread than in many other countries. So that makes me wonder what else can be happening there with the people.
Right. And it's also, not only, being able to get access to media, but looking at a lot of different media, not just one source, but looking at 2 or 3 different sources on the same topic and getting different perspectives.
Yeah.
And, if you only get one perspective, a lot of times that's going to be your perspective too, without understanding that there's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different angles and a lot of different special interests even behind the scenes, you know, whether that's CNN or Fox. Everybody's going to have an agenda.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that, because I think that's common in every country, that there are some mass media, like TV station or radio, that are more towards a particular interest. And here in the U.S., the biggest are CNN and Fox. So if you hear from CNN, you'll hear one thing, and from Fox, you'll hear the totally opposite, probably. So that's another thing to have in mind, right?
Right, and the truth is, like they say, usually somewhere in the middle. So, I just think it's important for students and just citizens and people to try to get as many different sources as possible.
Yeah.
When you're looking at news, and I try to do that. I still read 4 or 5 different newspapers and listen to 3 or 4 different television news stations, and
you don't have like a preferred TV or media outlet?
No. I there's some that I think do a better job of right down the middle than others. But I think it's important to kind of see what everybody's saying, and that helps you. It should help you maybe understand what's going on a little bit better.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit about your actual job here, which is the Director of Media and Public Relations, right?
Right.
So you told me that after you studied your master's, you were looking for jobs and you found this job here. Did you find other options, or this was just the one you had?
I actually had several options at the time getting out of graduate school, several in different states. Missouri, Colorado were a couple that come to mind that I had offers. But at the time, my dad was a little bit ill, and I wanted to stay in Arkansas, close by.
Yeah.
And I always liked Arkansas. I never really just wanted to leave. So I came up and interviewed for the position and was offered it a few days later. And I remember driving up here and thinking, I might spend a few years here at University of the Ozarks and then maybe go on to a bigger school.
Yeah.
And I've certainly had some opportunities, but I just enjoy this area. I enjoy the university and what it stands for, and when you get to know the faculty members, and when you get to know a little bit about the history of this university, that's really done a lot of impactful things. And you see the energy of the students. That's always I've always enjoyed that, and never really felt like I needed to leave.
Yeah. How many years have you been working here at the
So I started in 1997, so I'm finishing up my 26th year.
Wow, that's a lot. And you started like a one-man
one person office, for sure. And now there's probably 7 or 8 people now who are doing jobs that I once did when I got here in 97.
And will you want to do one of those jobs that you previously did, like one day or another? Do you think?
I always enjoyed sports information. I always enjoyed being around sports. And to this day, I still help Josh Pepis, our sports information director, with covering sports. So, I've always thought maybe when I retire, I might want to help out of college. Maybe Ozarks, doing that part-time.
What are some of the key responsibilities of your role right now, and how does a typical day in your office look like?
So as Director of Public Relations and Media Relations, I deal if things come up with the public, if we're collaborating. For instance, we're working on the new restaurant downtown, and so I would help in some of those areas. I was on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and served as president. and so I work closely with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
And I work closely with our alumni office and in our fundraising office. I do a lot of writing of the fundraising pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of the features on alumni articles for both our website and social media channels. If we have something big going on, I work with the television stations in the area to get them on campus. Same with newspapers.
Okay.
So we just a few weeks ago we had Channel 5 on campus, and so I showed them around and helped them with some of their interviews.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to interview some students and faculty. So that's part of the media relations part of it. I still do a lot of photography, help Vinny out with photography, do some graphic design, but mine are pretty basic compared to Vinny and Phyllis. They do a great job with that. And then Amy Lloyd, our vice president, and Carly, our creative director, handle most of the marketing now for like recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to do as much in those areas. But I still do things like the Alumni Magazine. I will put that together every year. The annual report, Walton reports, things like that. The physical reports. I will
You're
help,
the one in charge.
Pull the information together, do the photographs, do a lot of the writing for those type programs. Do the student feature articles that people may see online.
Yeah.
I interview the students and write their stories. That helps in a number of ways. It not only helps spotlight our students, but it helps us when we recruit other students. I just wrote an article about 3 of our students who are in law school, and one's in Los Angeles, one's in Baylor, and one's at University of Arkansas. They're all being very successful. Yeah. The one out in Los Angeles just got offered like 5 jobs, and she hasn't even graduated yet. So that tells you. So to be able to tell those stories about our graduates, I think helps recruit other graduates.
Yeah.
If I'm a 16-year-old at home wanting to be a lawyer and I hear those stories, that may make me think, maybe Ozarks is a good place to go.
Yeah.
And it also helps in fundraising. When we raise money for scholarships, we can say, hey, your money is going, and here's where it's going. These students are being very successful because they got scholarships at Ozarks, got a great education, and were able to move on. So that's probably what I enjoy the most about my job, is just being able to tell those stories. At the end of the day, I feel like what I am is a storyteller. Yeah. And to be able to share those stories of our students, of our faculty and staff, of our programs, that's to me very satisfying and very enjoyable, because I get to know the people whose stories I share. Yeah. But I also know I'm making an impact, maybe for future generations.
You have 27 years of experience working here at the University of the Ozarks, and during that time, back in 1997, I can't imagine how the internet was by that time. So the world of media and public relations is evolving constantly, right? So how have you seen that evolution since you came here?
Well, there's actually a kind of an interesting story to that. So when I got here in 97, the university did not even have a website. Oh, okay. So I got with he was a Walton Scholar at the time from Nicaragua, named Otto Mejia. And Otto was a very good photographer, and he also was very skilled, technical skills, and understood the website and the internet maybe a lot better than a lot of us did. And so he and I got together and made a proposal to the administration at the time to create really the first website. So he did a lot of the photography. He was really a good photographer, and then helped pull it together from the back end. And I did a lot of the writing, and we created the first website. Wow. And it wasn't real, it maybe was only a couple dozen pages, but at least people could go on and find information about the university. And now we see it today. We've got, literally thousands of pages on our website with all sorts of information and videos and all sorts of things. It's just so much easier. I can send out a news story and in an hour, a lot of people will have seen it.
Yeah.
Back then I had to, send it to the newspapers and then wait. If it was a local newspaper, I had to wait a week before it even came out.
Yeah.
And anybody could see it. So in a lot of ways, it's made our job easier, but a lot of ways, it's more competitive. Photography, we used to have to take our film up to the Photoshop and get it developed, and that would take 3 or 4 days before you could even get your photographs back. And now, obviously, it's instant.
Yeah,
we can take photos and put them on the websites and social media almost instantaneously. So those type things have certainly made it a lot easier to get information out. But there's a lot more clutter out there too that people have to get through. So being able to do things like analytics and being able to target your audience, even in social media and emails and that sort of thing, has been helpful.
I was really curious one time to see how the university website looked throughout the years, and I found it on the web archive, something like that, database, and it led me back until like the 98, 99, something like that, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I could look the website, and it's totally different.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have not seen that in a long time, and I would probably not want to see that because it might be a little bit embarrassing. But we started, like I said, that was the start of the website, and it at the time it seemed like we were pretty cutting edge, but even then we were probably a little bit behind the times. But at least we were able to kind of get the university, back or get it on the website and give it at least a place where people could go and find some basic information.
Yeah.
But I look at it now, and I look at what we can do now with videos and being able to have aerial shots of the campus and that sort of thing. It's a little bit mind-boggling how far we've come.
Yeah. So are you also the person in charge of the social media for the university?
Well, I was at one time. Now Carly and we have students that also who work a lot of that. I do a lot of the Facebook stuff, but Instagram and Twitter and those sorts of things are handled by Carly in our office, and I know she has students who help her out.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want me on Twitter, tweeting things that might be relevant to 16 or 17-year-olds. So that probably wouldn't be a good fit. But our current students do a good job of helping keep those type social media platforms relevant and interesting for our prospective students.
And also, when you write an article nowadays, do you actually write it on code, or do you send it to another person so they can upload it to the website? How does that work?
Yeah, I with WordPress these days, it's pretty simple. It's basically cut and paste. So I can write a story and post it
directly
immediately, right?
Like in a visual editor instead of code, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they have it set up pretty easy where we can pretty much cut and paste the article and a photo onto our website and then link it to social media outlets.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing a career maybe in media or in public relations, and what skills do you think are the most important to be successful in the field?
I think this day and age you just have to be as well-rounded as possible. I think you have to have some experience and skills in a number of areas. I think photography, I think you've got to know a little bit of graphic design.
Yeah.
I think you still have to be a strong writer. You know, a lot of people think they go into marketing or PR and it's just going to events and putting on events and that sort of thing. But it still is a lot of writing. So I think you have to be a strong writer and be interested in writing. I think you have to develop some of those computer skills, you know, graphic design, being able to edit video, being able to at least do a little bit of video, you know, editing, recording, podcasting, those sorts of things. All these things now play in to communications. And a lot of these companies that are hiring, they want somebody who's at least somewhat knowledgeable in all these different areas. Yeah. Because, for instance, I had no video background, but I got Susan Eden's helped us a lot as a department in understanding what we needed in video and understanding the jargon. And where even if we're hiring for those things, if we're using an outside vendor to come in and shoot video, at least we know, you know, the right questions to ask and the right things to look for and the right things to ask for. Yeah. So I think as knowledgeable as possible in all these different areas, you know, writing is still very important, and that was my background. But you know, videography and no one understanding radio. Yeah.
Have you had radio experience?
No, not a lot of technical radio experience. But for instance, one thing we do to help promote the university is that we have a weekly radio show with River Valley Radio, and you were on the show. One week to talk about your award that the show won, but every week either myself or somebody from the university goes on the radio and does about a 5 to 10 minute interview to kind of tell what's going on. Yeah. So even though I don't have that experience, I kind of know what I need to know for the radio, and it comes in handy. So I think if somebody's interested in a career in communications, I think it's important to just get as much experience as you can. Try to write for a magazine or a newspaper, because they'll always accept well-written articles, and get your portfolio built up. Get some experience in RTV, you know, get some experience in still photography, because all these things, it's just going to make you more marketable if you have some experience in all of them. And same with, you know, a lot of what we do is just pure marketing. So business classes in marketing would also be helpful.
Yeah, that's true. I was curious. You mentioned that you have interest in photography. Do you have your own camera?
Yes, I do.
What type of camera?
It's a Nikon D750. Yes, and I have several lenses, and you know, it's interesting that I take so many pictures at work that I don't really like to take them outside work, you know, but I do, as I mentioned, I do like to travel, and my wife and I like to hike, and we go like to the Grand Canyon or Glacier National Park, and I'm always taking my camera with me and setting it up and shooting landscapes and that sort of thing, which is my favorite thing to do. But so I hope maybe one day when I retire that maybe photography might become
a more strong hobby,
a stronger interest, that I can spend more time on.
Yeah, so you are more Team Nikon than Team Canon? Or?
I am Team Nikon, and you know, it goes all the way back to the student I was talking about, Otto Mejia. He was all Nikon, so at the time we just started buying Nikon equipment for the university, and got Nikon lenses and things, and once you go down that road and you have all these lenses and they come out with new cameras, you typically stick to Nikon. Yeah. So, but I know Vinny, for instance, she's been talking to us maybe about switching to Canon
Oh, really?
or Sony, because Sony's come out with some really
Yeah.
good cameras. So we've had those discussions,
Yeah.
but we've always used Nikon.
Also, have you heard about ChatGPT already?
No.
It's an AI, artificial intelligence. It has been all around the news and all around the. Yesterday, we just had a talk with a lot of professors here, and it was interesting because they were debating how that will modify or change the behaviors we have, or how the university and the professor will have to deal with that, with academic integrity and all that. And ChatGPT is all about writing, and part of this type of jobs like public relations, all this is all about writing too, besides other important areas. But do you think maybe these jobs are at risk in the future?
You know, it's funny because Susan and I were just talking about this morning, because you mentioned AI. We had a former an alum, a 2012 graduate by the name of Taylor Jacks, who was here, and he works in marketing and content creation for a company in Little Rock, and he was talking about AI and about the future of some of these jobs. And I've talked to some of my journalism friends about that. And Susan brought up a good point. She said, take from a journalist standpoint, there's always busy work that you have to do. Small articles that are basically just cranking out information.
Yeah.
And what if AI took over some of these smaller jobs that take up a lot of time and allowed reporters to focus on bigger stories, more in-depth investigative pieces? Maybe that would be a good thing. And so I think there's some benefits to it. But sure, I think as a writer or any kind of creative person has to be a little worried about what the future of AI means. And at this point, AI is still only as good as the information that you put into it, but how are we going to have unique, different pieces if AI is creating everything? I think the future is going to be interesting. I've heard a lot of things that says the future of reporting and journalism and even like as you said, marketing, public relations, might all be AI driven one day. And so what does that look like? And what does that mean for the people behind it? So
and it's interesting because I have heard in a lot of articles and videos about this topic that no one ever imagined that this type of artificial intelligence with these capabilities like ChatGPT has will come this year. For example, we always imagine something like this in 10 or 15 years, but it's coming now, and that's making me a little bit nervous too, because I'm just starting to be in my steps toward my career. So
well, I just think there's always going to be I just think there's going to be a limit to what it can bring from a unique perspective. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting, but I still think every one of us are different, and we think differently, and we process differently, and even the input that you provide in AI, that's going to be different. So the output's going to be different. So I don't know if that would be able to give you a byline if you had if you and an AI wrote something or produced something. I don't know how that looks.
It's weird because I have tried, and I have seen videos of people even writing books with it. So it's kind of scary because it's like well, they say it's unique. It's like never written before and all that. Every time you ask something to the artificial intelligence, so it's kind of scary. And yesterday in the talk we had, they showed us a lot of books that were written fully or in part by ChatGPT. So
And could you tell it? Could you tell a difference, or could you?
there are some patterns that artificial intelligence follows because it always start like with certain type of phrases or something like that. So I have tried sometimes, so I know this was part of ChatGPT, you know.
Right.
So yeah, but it's scary how fast it has become a reality, you know.
Right.
Talking about artificial intelligence and all that. So we're in the final part of the interview, and the last part is kind of a dynamic that I want to do with every guest, and it's basically short phrase or one word questions. So we'll start, and the first question is favorite color.
I've always liked green.
Green. What is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Take my dog outside.
Religion.
Baptist.
What is your favorite time of the year?
Fall.
Fall.
Fall. I just enjoy the changing of the seasons. Usually it's been a long, hot summer.
Yeah.
I like football, so fall's changing of the leaves, and football's in the air, and it's just hopefully a cooler time.
Yeah. What makes you angry?
Oh, what makes me angry? That's a good one. People parking in handicap places that don't deserve it.
Yeah.
That makes me angry.
Yeah, that's very upsetting. How will you describe your personality?
I would say I'm kind of quiet and analytical.
Mm-hmm. What will you buy if you received a gift of $1 million?
$1 million. Oh, wow.
It's a lot of money.
Yes, yes. The first thing I would probably purchase would be.
I think this is a tough one. This question always is a
always
tough one.
Probably a new set of golf clubs.
A what?
A new set of golf clubs.
Okay.
You know, I've had the same one for 20 years, so
Okay.
I'd probably splurge on some golf clubs.
Morning person or afternoon person?
Morning.
Morning. Favorite music genre?
70s rock and our country.
Favorite artist?
Favorite artist? The Eagles.
The Eagles. A job you dreamed to have when you were a child?
You know, I wanted to be a sports writer.
Sports writer. Well, you ended up doing it. That's great. TV shows or movies?
Probably movies.
Movies. What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Favorite sports movie is probably The Hoosiers. I like all the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
Star Trek, like sci-fi movies.
Have you watched Star Wars?
Yes.
Do you
Star
like
Wars.
them?
Yep, like Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, not the ones that Disney is making right now, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly old school. Old school Star Wars.
Yeah. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dogs. Do you have a pet?
Yes, have a dog. Little puppy named Gatsby.
How old is?
6 months.
6 months. Oh.
Yes. Yeah, we just got him. So he's still chewing on a lot of things, and we haven't quite got him potty trained. So that's been a little bit of an endeavor.
Yeah. And finally, I always give the opportunity to the guest to ask me any question. So you can ask me anything.
Oh, okay. So what has been your most impactful class at Ozarks and why?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. Wow. Well, I mentioned you the media writing class.
Uh-huh.
I think that class helped me in a lot of ways in my way of thinking. When for example, I have also a YouTube channel, and like the way I write the title of the video and all that, it has taught me a lot of things of copywriting and all that. So I think that class is the one that has had more impact in me, just because I always keep using the knowledge that I've been learning from that class, and I still have the book that we use in that class, and I come around that book and always try to refresh the things that I learned there. So that class for one part, media production too. I think it has helped me to be more involved in the media world, because we work a lot in the TV station there in Walker Hall. So yeah, I think mostly from communication.
So what's your favorite class outside your major or minors?
Well, I think this is kind of cheating a little bit, because in theory, digital photography is not part of any. It's art. It's from the art area of the. But I can't say that. I think it's too easy. What are the other class? Well, I'm taking. This is from my minor, but I think it's not related with all the other things I am learning from the majors. Is the class with Dr. Clary, the Hispanics in the U.S. And that's really interesting. And I, being from Honduras, I didn't know a lot of the things that have happened in the past, and how the United States has influenced not only Honduras but the whole Latin American area, and how that has affected both Latin America and the U.S. in the way of people immigrating to the U.S. and how the U.S. is dealing with a large amount of Latino people living in the U.S. So I think that's probably at least in the top 3 of my classes here at Ozarks, because it has opened me the eyes in a lot of ways.
Okay, very good. Now I have a non-Ozarks question for you. So what food do you look most forward to eating when you get back to Honduras, and what food will you miss the most from the U.S.?
Ooh, I think, well, from Honduras, all the food is delicious. The baleadas, I don't know if you have heard from that dish.
Yes.
It's delicious. My mom prepares like typical dish. It's refried beans, eggs, plantain, all that. I'm missing that a lot. So, and from here, it's not very common to eat bacon in Honduras. So probably.
So you will miss bacon.
Yeah, I think I will miss bacon a lot.
Very
because the other foods are like not really hard to prepare at home as well. But bacon is expensive in Honduras actually. So
very good. Well, we've always had host kids from Central America and Walton Scholars.
Yeah.
And we always like to ask them that, and it's always interesting to hear their answers.
Yeah, I have enjoyed the interview today with you. Any final words that you would like to?
No, I just appreciate you doing this show. I think it's a unique thing for the university. to learn a little bit more about the people here, and just keep up the great work, and good luck in the future.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, everyone who listened to the CDRB show. I'm Christian Rodriguez, and you can follow us on Instagram at CDRB Productions. I'll see you next time.